Welcome back. It's TVC Breakfast. This is Talk Time, and we're looking at the ongoing probe of the chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Ibrahim Lamode. A petitioner, Judge Ubo, is accusing the anti-graft boss of diverting recovered looted funds estimated at more than 1 trillion naira. Lamode allegedly stopped a legal process initiated to return the shortfall of former Bayelsa Governor Diepriye Alamesega's loot to the Bayelsa State Treasury. At a hearing yesterday, Ubo told the Senate Committee on Ethics that the EFCC under-recorded amounts and properties recovered from notable politicians. Correspondent Joke Adisa was there.
Different bank documents, Ubo insisted that more than 1 trillion naira has been found missing in the Commission's bank account. The debt collector said the Commission declared only about half of seized assets, and that declared assets are more often than not undervalued and sold to cronies.
EFCC colludes with real estate companies in order to grossly undervalue seized assets before they are sold to their cronies. 8. EFCC has not accounted for offshore recoveries. And 9. Over half of the assets seized from suspects are not reflected in EFCC exhibit records. Sir, the aggregate funds diverted by Lamode/EFCC stated below in the attached criminal charges is over 1 trillion. However, because over 95% of overseas seizures are diverted, there is urgent need to investigate and recover those funds as well.
Ubo also painted a picture of how Bayelsa State Governor Siriake Dixon allegedly chickened out from moves to retrieve the loot recovered from a former governor, Diepriye Alamesega, from the EFCC. Having listened to the petitioner, the senators noted some observations and posed a number of questions.
Was the promise by EFCC to pay you in 2014 documented?
I will hear from you. We'll end up this section for now.
The petitioner will not answer queries on how he got the documents on the committee's request, but is confident that the facts and figures they presented are genuine. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission's chairman could, however, not make it to the public hearing, citing exigencies of office. The committee has now fixed next week Tuesday and Wednesday to hear Lamode's defense. Meanwhile, another petitioner, Ihoma Ngozi, appeared before the committee to substantiate his claim against the Nigeria Customs Service. Joke Adisa, TVC News, Abuja.
Well, not all senators are interested in having Lamode probed. The Senate Unity Forum has criticized his invitation, saying it is illegal and a breach of the Senate's standing rules. Okay, well, I have my guests here who will be discussing this latest developments. Nelson Ekujimi, political analyst. It's good to have you on TVC Breakfast this morning. And Lanre Suraju, human rights activist. It's good to have you.
Always a pleasure.
Okay, President Muhammadu Buhari has taken this fight up, the fight against corruption. Is corruption fighting back, as many people have expressed?
Definitely, you should expect that, because, you know, corruption is an evil deed, and, you know, nobody wants to be caught on the wrong side of the law or on the wrong side of the society. So it is very, very imperative that corruption will fight back. And that is what we are witnessing today. But it's just unfortunate that Nigerians, I think we must always have this into our consciousness, that the fight against corruption should not be seen as a President Muhammadu Buhari's fight alone. It should be a collective effort, because where we are today is because we have been put down by corruption. Is it in the health? Is it in our defense? Is it in our infrastructures? In every facet of our life today has been bogged down by this virus called corruption. And the earlier we tame it to the barest minimum, the better for our society and for generations coming after us. So people should stop believing it is President Muhammadu Buhari. What happens when President Muhammadu Buhari leaves office? At least we all know that President Muhammadu Buhari is not a Methuselah, and our political office has a lifespan. at most maybe will be there for 2 terms. Or maybe even 1 term. Only God knows.
It's a very good question that you've just raised there. What happens when President Muhammadu Buhari is no longer at the helm of affairs? Which brings us to the issue of building strong institutions as against strong people or strong persons. Yeah. How can this fight, how can the average Nigerian actually be made to buy into, own this war against corruption?
Thank you. I think I should also bring us back, because we need to understand where we're coming from before we want people to actually join in the campaign. The first and foremost thing is that the President Buhari has not even started fighting corruption. We should be sincere about it. We should also bring Nigerians up to speed with it. What is causing the whole heartquake, you seem to be saying, is just the body language. And that body language is to say, no, it is not business as usual again. It is as simple as we need to now check where are we and then where are we coming from. And the fact that
where do we want to be?
Where do we want to be? And that is where the institutional thing really comes to play. Answering your question about institutionalization of the fight against corruption, and then the honing of that whole reclamation of Nigeria by Nigerians. And like my colleague rightly pointed out, it is not about Buhari, it is about Nigerians. And what we are seeing is the necessary platform and political will for Nigerians to reshape our future and then reclaim what is the lost glory in Nigeria by ensuring that we don't travel that perilous path again. And like we said, the whole hula baloo is that people who knows that they would be affected, who know they will be affected by what will be the outcome of this body language that we're seeing. Like it said, except for the DSS that just charged Dasuki Sambo, the former NSA,
yes,
there has not been any new case, that you can see this current government has been investigated.
Now, let's come to the issue at hand now, the Lamode affair. What does this really say in itself, that the hunter has become the hunted, if one might put it that way? What is it saying about, like you said, it's not like the war against corruption has really started in earnest, but there's a body language that says it is no longer business as usual. Precisely. What does that say to you?
Well, the truth of the matter is that the hunter can become the hunted. It is not unexpected if the hands of the hunter are not clean, because there's this saying that he who comes to equity must come with clean hands. But in this situation, the hunter is not only becoming the hunted. What is at play is that there's a vengeance mission. Because like they say in law, you cannot build something on nothing. The procedure for the invitation of the EFCC boss was very, very flawed.
Which is what the spokesman of the EFCC, Wilson
yes,
Wujaren, has
except
said.
If they are telling us that the rules has been forged again. Because, that was the precedent of that house. And we should expect this type of legislative rascality and irresponsibility if we all don't wake up to our societal responsibility. That look, you are legislators to represent us, you are supposed to be honorable members. There are rules governing conduct. I cannot just wake up because I'm presiding over a body and I want to make my own personal interest, to override the rules of the house. It shouldn't be done. Ordinarily, when a petition goes to the house, my organization has sent several petitions to the National Assembly, and we send it to the committees, to the committee. The committee member or the chairman of that committee reads the petition at the plenary. It is at that level that the petition will now be, directed to the appropriate committee to go and investigate. But what happens in this matter? The house was on recess. The petition never came to the plenary. All we had was that the man is going to be investigated for diversion of about 1 trillion naira.
And there had been about 3 motions already.
Definitely. And that's why you can see there's the earthquake in the house.
But really, the allegations here are quite weighty. Over 95% of overseas recoveries diverted.
Yeah.
That is one of the claims. And EFCC trades with recovered funds on the values, seized assets to sell to their cronies, etc. Did not remit. Some of the monies recovered from Tafa Balogun, etc., but 9 of them.
Yeah, I think we should also, like I try to do, situate some of these issues and the characters involved. First, let us start with the petitioner. This was a credit card fraud. Yeah, a fraudster who was convicted in the UK and sentenced to in the United States and sentenced to 8 years imprisonment in the United States. So, how much you want to rely on such witnesses of the petitioner, it is left for Nigerians to judge. That does not mean...
But Nigerians would say,
no, that does not mean... that's what I'm saying. That does not mean that there are situations where they would be witness of truth, or you would need to also rely on statements made. But then it's important to identify the character. It goes to Dino Melaye. Dino Melaye was the first parliamentarian to go and fight in the National Assembly, or even go to the gallery of the National Assembly with jeans and t-shirt with the hope of going to fight. Now, this same Dino Melaye was the one who acted almost like a bodyguard to the wife of the Senate President, current Senate President, to the EFCC office while she underwent the last interrogation. Now look at the Senate President. The Senate President, Nigerians know, is under investigation. There's no doubt about it. The wife has been invited by the current EFCC, not even, let's talk about the chairman, but by the current EFCC. And we've had reasons to travel this path before. 2007, 2008, Bukola Saraki was one of those who held from late President Yaradua hostage. Himself and Ibori were the ones who truncated and decapitated the whole effort of the fight against corruption under Nuhu Ribadu, that culminated in the removal of Nuhu Ribadu as the chairman when he was sentenced to Kuru, NIPS for whatever it is they call it under that. So when we have these antecedents, it's important that we don't forget our past and our history so that it can guide both our future and then also shape what we do currently. So now when we look at the weight of the evidence, this same
allegations,
EFCC, the allegations,
they're not evidence,
the allegations now, the same this EFCC under Nuhu Ribadu and Lamode as the director of operations, where was when James Ibori attempted bribing the commission with $150 million. This money was not misappropriated. It was deposited in the central bank until they went through the whole of the legal process. Unfortunately, when the investigation process was on, Delta State government was reached to say,
ask for
exactly, evidence to also assist them, in convicting Ibori for bribery. The same Delta State government under Uduhan wrote officially to say no money was missing in Delta State. So there's no way we can corroborate the fact that somebody has used the money of the state.
But later, if my memory serves me right,
when they now got to the court, they were now asking for the money. So the EFCC had to tender the letter to say, but you already told us that no money was missing in the treasury of Delta State. So how dare you come here? The judge was almost going to commit the Attorney General to prison for actually that double standard and attempt at deceiving the court. So it's important that we lay some of these backgrounds. And I can tell you, like also the Wilson said on one of the TV shows when he was interviewed, and he said, look, all the total amount of money recovered by EFCC, foreign and local, they have not even been up to 1 trillion naira. You know what is called 1 trillion naira? So when you are now saying a fraction of that amount equals to 1 trillion naira that had been diverted, then you will also want to ask the question of what actually makes up 1 trillion naira, and then which amount can they confirm. And I was looking at those evidence. These are just like typed papers, you know, that are printed, which anybody can print, and what are being showcased.
Absolutely, but you have painted a picture. Nelson, should we, because of the question around the integrity of this petitioner, George Ubo in this case. Should we, because of that, cast aside this, you know, or investigation or probe or summons or invitation or whatever you might want to call it? Because as it is, some parts of the Senate, including the PDP caucus, they're actually dissociating themselves from this investigation.
No, we should not. But we must always have it at the back of our mind that in life and even in law, integrity matters. The mere fact that Ubo is an ex-convict in the court of law makes him an unreliable witness. So what it is like what I stated earlier on, that you cannot build something on nothing. If you don't have integrity in the court of law, you are not assumed to be a reliable witness that the court can take your word for it, except if there's a superior evidence, you know, to corroborate whatever evidences you are bringing in. In as much as Ubo, I don't know who is working for, has brought up these allegations, I think it is important for the Nigerian state itself to ensure that this matter is pursued to a logical conclusion, so that at the end of the day, if Ubo is found to have manufactured those evidences is using to back up his allegations, he must face the music, because I know that will be amount to forgery under the laws of Nigeria, so that whatever time he has spent in the US, he can come and replicate part of it here at home to serve as a lesson. That look, the mere fact that we are operating a democracy in which the freedom of expression is allowed, people must not abuse it. This is serious business. So we send the signal to all and sundry that you cannot just come and waste the time of the nation. You cannot waste the resources, because I'm sure for that committee to sit, resources must have been budgeted for it.
Especially when they're on recess.
Well, especially when they're on recess. So it is very important that if at the end of the day, Ubo is found to have, you know, manipulated those evidences, he should face the music.
Or being manipulated by some forces.
Yes, he should face the music.
Beyond himself.
We should not just allow it to end at
and this committee has said, look, this is not a summons, it is just an invitation. What does this mean?
I know, it's actually also building up to what he had said. I was also reading the ICPC Act, and I also see that it is actually an offense for you to misinform a public officer or a public office. So even not going, without even producing evidence, or without those evidences that you're talking about, beyond the forgery case, it's also the misinforming both the Senate. But the unfortunate thing is the EFCC is duty-bound by its law to report to the Senate September of every year. So his report is meant to be presented officially to the Senate. So that begs the question that you are asking, that, you know, I mean, how do you then characterize this summon? It's obvious that there's an agenda to be achieved by either the Senate or these committees or characters within that system. Because otherwise, this is August ending. A responsible and altruistic house would then have waited for September, when the chairman or the commission is expected to come and present the reports of the commission to the Senate, and then all these questions can then be asked. Then, because then amounts that were recovered, amounts that were saved, amounts that were spent will have been presented in that report.
Now, does that explain why Ibrahim Lamode did not show up to answer to this committee?
Well, I think in law, you are allowed to either be physically present or be represented by your counsel.
He did send a representative of the EFCC.
He said because of the exigencies of the office.
Office.
So, and I'm sure it was not disrespectful to the Senate, so as not to, you know, make any representation at all. And the invitation has been extended till next week. I think we should all give them the benefit of doubt and allow the drama to play out.
Now, in other parts of the world, when there is a big question mark on the integrity of a person who heads an organization as sensitive as the EFCC or whatever, you know, organization it may be, whether in government or even a company, Is there any moral justification that he continues to be there as EFCC chairman? Or should we see him actually stepping aside and say, look, you know, it is morally wrong for me to be here until these investigations are carried out and until I am proven?
Well, actually, there's no investigation yet. And just like we rightly observed, if we have to work with that assumption, you know, and position, then it would mean that once anybody is dissatisfied and a petition is written, then everybody leaves the office. No, there must be a substance to the extent that you want to ascertain, establish that there is an element of truth in those either petitions or allegations, or there is a court proceeding already from that issue, or and unfortunately, I mean, this is also some of the things that, because I remember my organization issued a statement earlier, you know, on this same issue. This National Assembly, unfortunately, does not even have the power to start this so-called probe.
Why is that?
There's no law of the National Assembly that gives that power for this probe. It has oversight functions on ministries, departments, and agencies. It also has the lawmaking power. There's no power that gives the National Assembly this investigation that is being conducted. It is not in the powers of the Assembly. And that we need to make. What we have had is an aberration such that when parliamentarians want to extort money from ministries, departments, agencies, and their heads, they just summon them all for whatever investigation, probe, or discussion. It is not done. And when, unfortunately, which was the abuse got to an end, and you saw Desiani go into court to go and say, please stop these characters from just harassing the ministries. And because if there are issues to be resolved, we have the anti-corruption institutions and agencies. There's the ICPC, there's the EFCC itself, there is the Code of Conduct Bureau, and there is the police. So all you need to do is forward whatever petition, after your own discussion, forward to the anti-corruption agencies or lawmaking agencies for them to do an investigation and report back to you. So for you to start this process, because they are actually jobless, is because they are not really living up to the expectation. And you could see what eventually happened with the 7th Assembly. You know, what they failed to do in 4 years in terms of facing the primary responsibility of the Assembly, they were doing in a matter of hours. Indeed. And that was why Nigeria enters into the record book of passing, you know, tens of bills in a matter of hours.
And speaking of precedents and records and what have you, the average Nigerian out there who is watching this theater, I don't want to describe it as a theater of the absurd, but that's what it's beginning to look like.
Right.
The average Nigerian out there is wondering, will this not just be swept under the carpet like all other cases have been? You mentioned the police. They are actually, presumably, supposed to be the ones who should be investigating. When they do a thorough job, then they take it to the next level. What do we expect eventually from this particular case?
Well, I don't know, because I don't know what tomorrow holds for us all.
Because people have said, you know, that the reason why Anibori, for example, was not jailed in Nigeria was because a thorough job was not done. And, you know, the so-called loopholes in the judicial system.
That's not true. The prosecution was faulty.
The prosecution wasn't faulty. No. Let's get, sorry, I mean, I'm just usurping that. The truth of the matter is that the judiciary truncated the whole Ibori thing. There was nothing like these characters in trying to win cause. There was a thorough prosecution in the case of Ibori, and the judge was extremely compromised. The case was to happen in Kaduna. They said, no, it had to be. There is only one federal high court. When it has only one federal high court, either it is in Kaduna, in Lagos, or wherever, you can be tried. They influenced the process to the extent that the judgment was given that it should be tried there in Delta. When there was no court there in Delta, they had to create one. The one that was created and the site, that is the office, was procured by Delta State government under Uduhan. And the whole thing, Ibori came here and said he never committed the offenses. He got to London. The same offenses he owned up and said, sorry, I committed them.
So
but my position is that
how come?
If a judge has failed in the discharge of his or her duties, I'm sure the EFCC should have, appealed the judgment.
No, it was not possible because as at that time, Ibori and the rest of them were in control with Yar'Adua. They couldn't proceed with appeal. Because when they saw the change in trend of situation, that what is name? Jonathan came into government and is not likely to be business as usual. And the appeal is likely to result in conviction. That was when he took off. That was when he ran out of Nigeria and ran to Dubai. Not knowing that there was a mutual legal assistance between Dubai and the UK. So he wanted to, on realizing that he wanted to get out, they said, no, you can't go. I mean, there's already an
okay, let's begin to take our callers from here. I'm sure they have a lot to say about this issue. Karim from Katsina, did I get that right? Taraba State. Hello, Karim. Good morning.
No, from Taraba.
Yes, Karim from Taraba. Go ahead, please.
Yes, kudos to you all in the studio there.
Thank you. Good morning.
Yeah, yes. I'm happy to those gentlemen making good contributions. Honestly, in fact, they are telling us the correct position. The National Assembly are not making any effort. In fact, I don't know, Bukola Saraki should immediately leave that place. Bukola Saraki, I don't know why letting this thing for. Is it because of his opportunity to be manipulated as the president of the National Assembly? Because the EFCC has is looking at it. I don't know whether it is a joke. He is looking at this situation as a joke. Bukola Saraki. Ibori and Bukola Saraki, I think the law should take a proper action on these two people because I don't know, Nigeria is fighting corruption and they want to pollute the situation. I am with the view that the law should take proper action and deal with these people seriously. One other aspect is that the National Assembly, they should understand that they are there representing people of various states, and the whole world are watching them. And the action they are taking now towards the EFCC boss, in fact, it is not their duty, it is not their right to probe the EFCC. Have there any section of the law that gave them the authenticity to probe the EFCC? In fact, they should not mess up. They should not underrate the Nigeria country. Nigeria is a great country that we should be respected for the whole world. So they should not underrate Nigeria. If they don't know what they're doing in the National Assembly, they should vacate. They should go back to their locality.
All right. Thank you very much, Karim from Taraba. He feels that Nigerians deserve better than what we're getting right now.
Definitely. You see, I think we got a little bit of education from Suraj here because one would have expected that the National Assembly, as part of their oversight functions, if they have seen any infractions of the law by an agency under a committee of the House, the most appropriate thing in this case would have been for them to have written a letter to the Inspector General of Police to do the needful.
Thorough job.
Yeah, instead of trying, because like he has rightly pointed out now, it's like they are trying to take the law into their hands. And it must be, it must be challenged by Nigerians that no matter this position you find yourself, you are still under the law.
Absolutely, and nobody is above the law, like it's always said over and over again. Now, let's look at the judiciary. The president himself, President Muhammadu Buhari, in this fight against corruption that is rearing to go, he has said he wants fearless judges. Now, how do we determine, how fearless these judges are? Is it when they eventually put somebody behind bars for corruption, or what are we expecting here?
No, there are quite a number of
Kujimi, I'd like you to
respond with that.
Respond to that before.
Okay, well, the issue of fearless judges, I think the judge will only be examined on the performance of his or her duties.
Okay, just hold that thought. Let me take Ogaba from Benue State. Hello, Ogaba. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Larry, morning, and Kunjimi, kudos to you.
Morning.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, Larry, I see, I want to commend you and your other stable society activists for what you're doing in the FCC. And we expect that the FCT should be filled with people of like minds. I not just the three of you or a handful of you, because what Nigerians, there are so many characters in the FCT who are foot soldiers of corruption. It's not just these main actors you are seeing. There are so many people who are ready to play. I mean, who are used to being running errands for corruption in the FCT. And I want us to be able to, I am there too, I want us to be able to look at that side and see how we can do a lot of activities in that direction. Having said that, I want to say that what is happening in the Senate is in respect of the public petition. And I'm sure that even in the past, there's so many people who have written petitions like that. The National Assembly, the two arms of the National Assembly, have been attending to public petitions like that. There is no harm in following what has the petition that has been written, and it should be followed to a logical conclusion. Let us actually know what is happening. There is a possibility that the EFCC has been compromised, and so let it play out as it is going now. There's no need accusing anybody. We are going to see, let us see it naturally play out. And at the end of the day, let us get a result from there.
All right. Thank you very much. Ogaba from Benue there. He believes that the EFCC has been compromised, but we'll come to that later.
I think I want to quickly respond to Ogaba that okay. You see, we must always realize the fact that there's this biblical saying that the heart of man is full of evil.
Desperately.
So definitely,
and who can know it?
Yes, we must all be on our toes to ensure that the laws that are made to check violators, is implemented to the fullest.
Isn't that where the problem really is? The EFCC boss himself, Lamode, in one of his speeches, said the major challenge that the EFCC and bodies like itself, has, whether it's the ICPC and what have you, the slowness of judicial process, and then funding. And then the EFCC or the ICPC, they're not even empowered to go beyond just saying, oh, this person is guilty of this, or we believe that this person has diverted or amassed such wealth.
Well, I think it boils down to the political leadership we have at any point in time. Because like we have rightly noted now, even before starting the fight, the body language of Mr. President, already everybody is sitting up, people are running helter-skelter to cover their tracks, and it should not be unexpected. But the truth of the matter is that we have a political leadership that today is very, very much conscious of the decay in the system due to corruption, and it is ready to fight it headlong. Coming to the judiciary that we talked about, I think it is imperative for us, as the society, to rise up and, agitate that judiciary should live up to its billing. The procedure of list recruitment of judges, the dossier on judges, I think the National Judicial Commission has it. And it is imperative for us to ensure that judiciary is always put under spotlight, so that if any judge, any judicial officer in the discharge of his or her duties is found wanting, they should face the music. It is not enough for a judicial officer to have been found to have compromised his oath and just be allowed to retire. No, it won't serve as a lesson to anybody. The best thing would have been, take for example, a judge that presided over the case of the Osun election petitions that was 2007 thereabout, Justice Thomas Naron. It was fun to have, collaborated with the council of former Governor Ilola, that's Kalejaye SAN. And what has happened? This should not be enough for you to just
so-called conspiracy between the bar
yes,
and the bench.
And the bench.
Okay, let's take Bashir from Kano. Hello, Bashir. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good to have you. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I really want to commend your... Yes. I also want to contribute my own quota for the development of the society.
Go ahead.
Honestly speaking, I have been going through the activities of the Senate President or the Senate. So I think it is very long for the Senate to investigate or to probe EFCC Chairman Lamode. If Nigerians can remember, the wife of the Senate President was accused of misappropriating some funds. This is a case that the Senate President himself has an interest in it. Then how do we expect the Senate again to probe the EFCC chairman? Because since he has an interest in the matter concerning his own wife, he should not be a judge in his own case. Nemo judex in cause as well. At least let the Senate write a letter to the police or any enforcement agency so that they can do their own job. I think it is quite unfortunate.
Okay, Bashir, thank you very much. Bashir calling from Kano there.
Going from where we had with Kazim and then Bashir, we are not in any way opposed, and that should be clear, opposed to extensive investigation of any statutory body, either the EFCC or otherwise. Because even if it is the president, we in the civil society would clearly demand for the investigation of such a person. So in this case, it is not to say, don't investigate Lamode. No, it can't be such a blanket demand or criticism. But what we're saying is that in this case, like I said, we've traveled these routes before. So when you can see an involved Senate president, you can see a bastardized process to the extent that a petition was written. This is almost about the most expeditiously treated petition in the history of the National Assembly, because by even the letter, it was dated July 31st. So the committee could immediately, within itself, like he said, even while the Senate was on recess, or is still even on recess, the Senate president, I could hear one of them, I was reading one of them saying, the Senate president has the power to actually minute that petition to either the committee or now to the plenary. But he never quoted which section of their rules permitted that. The history has been, once it is written to the, nationally you send it through a senator to the National Assembly, and it is read on the floor of the Senate, and it is referred. The also important thing is there's a committee that is in charge of EFCC, on the one on narcotic, anti-corruption, and the rest of that. It could also have been appropriately
directed to that committee
to supervise, because that is the committee that supervises the EFCC.
Now let's look at the whole against corruption. How much really can be achieved if the rule of law, the judicial system is not where it should be? How far really can PMB go?
Then we're on a full-time mission, because you know, the role of the law, you know, in ensuring that the anti-corruption war is waged in line with civility and democratic norms, recognizes the fact that all these institutions must be on top of their game. If you have gathered all the evidences and you can't find the judiciary is found wanting, then you have not achieved anything. Likewise, if you have done a poor job, the judiciary is not a Father Christmas. The judiciary must be convinced beyond reasonable doubt. You just don't come to court and say, I think So it is very, very important for all these institutions or mechanisms of the state to be on top of their game in order for our newfound image to remain. Because today, Nigeria is the beautiful bride of the world.
Absolutely.
Unlike what obtained in the past, where people treat every Nigerian as a fraudster, as a drug courier. Today, the American president has told the whole world that today, Nigeria is a man of integrity. And that is a testimonial, because the Nigerian president represents the Nigerian people.
Indeed. Okay, let's take Chibuzo from Kogi. Hello, Chibuzo.
Hello.
It's good to have you. Go ahead, please, with your contribution.
Okay, I just want to commend all of you over there. My whole contribution is that if we are in a war against industry and corruption, and the Senate committee is charged with the responsibility, I don't see any need for the US Commission to shy away from answering. This is not guilty of your offense. Let them meet the committee as in charge and explain himself. If it's not guilty, he will be discharged as teacher. I mean, he's not the only person being proved this time around. My own contribution. Let him answer the call. Let him not shy away from me. Thank you. All
right, Chibuzo, thank you very much. Slowness of judicial process of prosecution, abuse of judicial processes, crazy injunctions, etc., conspiracy between the bar and the bench, merging the ICPC and all the rest of them. How viable, really, will it be? People have called for, you know, that the whole corruption cases and issues really should be settled in the regular courts. But we don't have that.
Yeah, because
setting up special tribunals, special bodies, and what have you.
You know, that is the question. Sorry, I was also going to contribute to with the one with reference to the judges. I think there are some bold judges that we already have.
Yeah, because I remember in secondary school, I read a book called The Incorruptible Judge.
Right.
I wonder if we have any.
So there's still, I mean, I will give you a very typical example. When Ribadu was there, also with Lamode as the director of operations, they actually approached the judiciary and requested for some certain judges that are outstanding. And they were actually kind of unofficially designated as EFCC judges, you know, within the judiciary. We have Justice Olubunmi Oyewole, who is now of the Court of Appeal. There's another one, Kekere Ekun. Oyewole was the one who actually adjudicated over the case of Chief Bode George in Lagos. So you can imagine...
That was bold enough to jail him for 2 years.
Precisely. And it wasn't not only to jail him, they were every day the court was sitting. All manners of characters in the court. Some of them dancing, some of them shouting, you know, trying to intimidate the judge. But he was upright enough. He never tolerated all the unnecessary and undue injunctions that you mentioned, to the extent that you can have the accused escaping from the hands of the law. That is one. You have some horrible judges in this country. One of them was the judge who sat, his name now I've forgotten, in the Odili case, who gave a perpetual injunction. It has never happened in the world, restraining agencies of law enforcement agencies of a country to investigate or prosecute an ex-public office holder. After the EFCC also made an attempt to vacate that injunction, the president of the Court of Appeal, up until today, has never assigned that case. They have filed it, I think, more than a year ago. It's never been assigned to any judge. And because, obviously, you also have a family member of Odili within the judiciary, in the high-ranking status of the judiciary.
His wife,
so his wife there to be in the Supreme Court. So then you can see. But the
all right, let's just hold that thought. Sorry. Kamaruddin is calling us from Yobe. Hello, Kamaruddin.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for this discussion, and good morning to the gentleman.
Yeah, good morning, my brother.
I think whatever thing we want to do, there is a process attached to it. This case of the National Assembly putting the chairman of the EFCC, I think the process that should be attached to the probing is a completed before they go through the probing itself. All we know is that before the Senate can go to probing anybody or the institution, the petition must be written to the Senate as a whole. The Senate as a whole will look at the petition and decide whether to set up a committee or not, or to pass the petition to the appropriate body for the probing to be made. But in this case, nowhere we add that the Senate has had debated on the petition since the essence of the petition before this probe is made. All we just know that the petitioner has written a petition to the Senate and expressly it is accepted and a probe is set up. I think if we want to do the house, there is every necessary thing for us to have a very good foundation. Once the foundation is faulty, whatever thing we want to come out with will also be faulty. I think from my own viewpoint, the process leading to this probe is faulty. So whatever outcome they want to attain, at the end of the day, also be faulty. I think the Senate will do the right thing. Ensure that the petition goes through the right process. Ensure that all input is added to the petition before they come up with the result that the EFCC chairman should be probed. I think that is my own contribution. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Now, they say if you continue to do something the same way and you expect different results, it is a definition of insanity. If we continue this fight against corruption the way we are going about it, without plugging the holes, you know, like they say, prevention is better than cure. Definitely. Anywhere in the world, there is the natural human tendency to want to put to want to do the wrong thing. Yeah. But if the right deterrents are in place, then we will, you know, save ourselves this whole trouble. Isn't that where we should be starting from? Preventing corruption in the first place, using things like technology, you know, and of course, the rule of law and all the paraphernalia that you might want to use to prevent it, so that we cannot really eradicate corruption.
We can reduce it to the barest
We can reduce it to the barest minimum. Isn't that what we really should be looking at?
Yes, I think another area we should be looking at is that we should be looking at the area of decentralization of powers and resources. Because that, in a way, will go a long way in curbing corruption. I'll give you a vivid example. If you remember in the Bible, Jesus said the kingdom of heaven can be likened to a master going on a journey. To one servant he gave 5 talents. To another he gave 1, 2. To another he gave 1. That shows to you that God, even God himself, recognizes the fact that you should decentralize your resources. You can imagine if all the 8 talents have been given to one man, and like the one that was given 1, and he went and buried it under the ground. You know, the master would have been more angrier than he was, because I think why the man was only mild with his servant was because he looked at it that I gave 1 5 and he has multiplied it.
At least some perform.
So, you know. So it is very, very important for us that in this fight against corruption, we should not only be seen, you know, to be mouthing it. We must make sure that all the necessary ingredients are put in place, so that even judges, because I'm sure why we don't have maybe 100% or 95% fearless judges is because of the fact that there are some judges who have corrupted the upcoming ones. It's just like what happens in a home. When the head of the house becomes irresponsible and reckless, what do you expect of the children? But when the children knows that, look, my father is a mentor figure, I want to be like my father, a lot of the kids will be you know, aspiring to be that way. So it is important for us to, you know, up it into the consciousness of the Chief Justice of Nigeria as well as the NJC. Don't forget, before the 2015 general elections, there was this general outcry about the complicity of the judiciary in truncating our democracy.
Yes.
And that agitation got into the mindset of the Chief Judge, that the Chief Justice of Nigeria and the NJC issued a directive that any judicial officer that
found wanting
will face the music. And what happened? Everybody sat upright. So that is this type of scenario we should be painting for our society, that at any point in time, from your day 1 in office to your last seconds, we are watching every step of yours And if you are found wanting, no matter where you come from, no matter who has nominated you, you face the music. That's the way to go.
Now, when we have a leader right now in President Muhammadu Buhari, whose body language clearly says zero tolerance for corruption, you know, we've talked about the judiciary here. Can you really divorce the judiciary from what the society has allowed to go on for a long time? No, the corruption we're talking about has found its way in every sector, in every strata of society.
The judiciary is still a reflection of Nigeria. But why it is so worrisome, it's the basic fact that the judiciary is the last hope of the common man and the arbiter in terms of resolving conflict, and then also meant to be there as the last resort, you know, for in terms of also bringing about justice, equity within the system. So all that harm of government is as corrupted as we have it now, then is as good as the state, what they call a state failure, that the state has completely failed. It is rather unfortunate also to the extent that the house within itself has refused until lately to sanitize itself. It's actually a conservative profession. That is the legal profession, even within the lawyers. The lawyers are one of the worst violators of human rights when it comes to employment and labor. You need to go and see what senior lawyers does to the junior lawyers. And they graduate from this to become judges. So they are equally many times very conservative to the extent that they protect their own. So it is extremely difficult. It must be in the very extreme cases with undisputable evidence, overwhelmingly enough, that you would now see the NJC sanctioning judges. And like he rightly observed earlier, we have moved beyond, there's no law that says a judge cannot be prosecuted and convicted. It is insufficient for a compromised, a corrupt judge to just be asked to leave the bench and then he can retire even with his loot. It is. I was recently reading the ICPC Act, and I saw in the Act a provision that says people charged under that Act for offenses committed under the Act, the case must be dispensed with within a period of 6 months. You will still have, you see cases that stretches over 6, 4, 5 years, and they're charged under this same ICPC Act. And
Sage says that what they want to see happen, or what is going to happen, is that any corruption case will be done within 9 months. Do you think that is realistic?
Well, you know, man proposes, God disposes. It's good that when you have set on a task, that you should give yourself a time frame, or else you assume you should embark on that task for eternity. But mind you, you don't have the luxury of time. So I think with the pedigree of a person like Professor Sesage, we are very, very much comfortable that we are on the right track, because this is a man who has, you know, proven his mettle wherever he has found himself. So it is important, but by and large, the society itself has a big role to play. And that is why when we look at the generation that is coming behind, that is behind my own, I feel sad. I remember in those days, whereby in our society, when a man comes into affluence, the first thing people ask,
how did he come about as well?
So there's the general malaise of worshipping wealth.
We cannot continue the way we are.
No, we are. I mean, that is what brought about, that is what determined the 2015 election. Nigerians were not really looking at, except for the religious bigots and ethnic chauvinists, Nigerians were looking at, is this man not going to steal? Or is it likely to recover our loot? Then we would go for him. Every other thing, forget about it. I mean, you will remember, even Nigerians went to the extent that when they said Buhari does not have a certificate, they said, even let him bring a NEPA bill, we will still vote for him.
We'll take it. All right, very quickly, because we're about to begin to round up now. The executive, personified by President Buhari himself, looks like he's saying no to corruption. Yes. How can we get the legislature and the judiciary to, you know, buy into this for real?
Yeah, very quickly. Before going to the so-called anti-corruption courts, you know, that the president is looking for. We can have designated courts, you know, where we have designated judges who can start a process of speedy adjudication in many of these cases, to the extent that the fight against corruption would not be watered down and then will not be diverted by people who are going to be affected by it. The National Assembly cannot reform itself. It's not going to change. You can see even when within itself it set up a committee to review their allowances and salaries. They started kicking and they are already opposing. So Nigerians will be the one to sustain these demands and agitation. Not only sustain it, direct it, its affairs and prosecution, so that it's not diverted by the ruling class. Quite a number of them, even some of them progressives, are not happy. It is not only people in PDP that are unhappy with what is happening. Even some of them in other APC and other parties who have had one reason or the other to benefit from the rottenness system are not happy that this is going the way it is. But Nigerians have been the ones bearing the brunt from day one, and they will continue to be the one if this fight and this opportunity is allowed to be derailed or it fails.
I think I want to end on this piece that I will go biblical again. I'm not, even though I'm not a pastor.
We can see you aspiring.
That there's this admonition in the Bible that truth exalts a nation,
right?
But sin is a reproach to any people. So Nigeria is in our hands. The way we make it is the way we lie on it.
Absolutely. My mother used to say, as you lay your bed,
so you lie on it.
So you lie on it. I want to thank you so much, Nelson Ekujimi, political analyst, and Lanre Suraju for coming on the breakfast show this morning. Thank you so much for your insight and your input.
Thank you very much.
All right, this is TVC Breakfast.